Have you ever felt an invisible heaviness around you? As if something is draining your energy without a clear cause. The truth is, what you're sensing may not even belong to you. Toxic quantum connections, energetic cords from people, memories, or timelines can weave themselves into your field, holding you in patterns that aren't yours to carry. And if you found this message, it's not random. Your higher consciousness magnetized you here because you're ready to finally untangle these threads. You see, most people live entangled in invisible contracts, old emotions, unresolved bonds, unconscious agreements that function like parasites in the quantum field. They replay the same loops of heartbreak, fear, or scarcity, mistaking them for their own reality. But what you've been feeling, those strange waves of exhaustion, déjà vu moment, or sudden mood shifts for no reason, are signals, proof that your nervous system is picking up interference from connections that no longer serve your highest timeline. Imagine your energy field as a vast ocean. Some currents are natural, guiding you toward flow, coherence, and expansion. But toxic currents like oil slicks drag you back into turbulence. These aren't just metaphors. Quantum physics shows us that entanglement is real once two particles interact. They remain connected beyond time and space. The same is true with human consciousness. The people you once loved, the situations you once survived, even the identities you once wore, many are still tethered to your field. But here's the hidden key. You are not trapped in these connections. Right now, simply by becoming aware, you've already begun the process of untangling. Awareness is the first cut in the invisible web. And what I'm about to share with you will show not only how to recognize these toxic quantum threads, but how to dissolve them so your authentic frequency can finally expand without interference. So take a deep breath. Feel that subtle stirring in your chest. That's not coincidence. That's your field responding. You're standing at the threshold of liberation. Have you ever noticed how certain events in your life feel like echoes, as if reality is recycling the same scene with different faces? You meet someone new, but within weeks the same arguments emerge that haunted your last relationship. You leave a toxic job, but the new workplace begins to mirror the same frustrations. You tell yourself you've moved on, yet the script repeats. These recurrences are not random. They are the fingerprints of toxic quantum connections, energetic cords that keep you entangled in the same timeline until you recognize them and cut them free. One of the clearest signals of these entanglements is emotional repetition. The details may change, but the emotional flavor is identical. Fear of abandonment, the pressure to prove your worth, the sting of betrayal. They return like old songs on a broken record. Each time you invest attention and emotion into these loops, the field collapses. What seems like fate is often just resonance replaying itself. Another sign is the sudden drain of energy that follows specific interactions or memories. You might feel strong in the morning, but a single message leaves you weak, foggy, or irritable. This is not simple stress. It is leakage. Toxic quantum connections act like open circuits, siphoning coherence from your system. If recovery takes longer than it should, the reason is not your body's weakness, but your field's entanglement. Time itself can reveal the presence of these cords, déjà vu, repeating dreams, or the sensation of conversations happening before they occur. These are not coincidences. They are indicators that you are reliving probability patterns. Consciousness collapses into what it already knows. And until you intervene, you remain stuck inside a loop of time that feels eerily familiar. The strangeness you feel is not madness. It is evidence of entangled timelines. Your emotions may also betray what is happening. Have you ever left a conversation only to realize your mood is not your own? Perhaps you carried someone else's anger or sorrow without realizing it. That is emotional contagion. When chords are active, your nervous system synchronizes with another's frequency, borrowing feelings that were never yours to carry. They feel real, but they dissolve once the resonance fades if you notice and release them. Sometimes the entanglement is not with a person but with an identity. You may be bound to a role like "I am the fixer" or "I am destined to be rejected." These silent contracts pull experiences toward you that confirm the role. They are self-perpetuating scripts that restrict your choices and keep you orbiting the same limited self. As long as you unconsciously defend the story, you reinforce the attachment. Your body is often the first to reveal when these chords are active. A tight chest, a sudden lump in the throat, nausea in the gut, or chills across the skin. All of these micro-signals are early warnings. Most people dismiss them as random stress reactions, but they are precise diagnostics from your field. Pay attention to these sensations, and you will map exactly where toxic chords still reside. Perhaps the strongest evidence of all is the lingering sense of incompletion. You ended the relationship, left the job, moved cities, yet the pull remains. Something feels unfinished, as if part of you is still stuck back there. That is because time and distance cannot dissolve quantum entanglements. They persist until you bring them into awareness and release them deliberately. Recognizing these signs is not a passive observation. It is the first act of liberation. Each time you identify a loop, a leak, or a false identity, you are loosening the invisible net. Awareness is already a form of cutting. It interrupts the automatic replay and creates space for new possibilities to emerge. Once you can name the signals, the chords weaken. Once you see the architecture of the trap, you can prepare for the protocols that dissolve it completely. What once looked like destiny begins to reveal itself as nothing more than an entangled pattern, and patterns, once seen, can be broken. To understand how toxic quantum connections form, you must first recognize that energy follows attention. Wherever you place awareness repeatedly, you create a groove in the field, like water carving a canyon through stone. Each thought, each emotional surge, each repeated focus becomes a measurement event that collapses reality into a specific pattern. This is the observer effect at work. But in toxic connections, the observation is hijacked. You unconsciously keep looking at the same wound, the same person, the same unresolved memory. And by doing so, you lock your consciousness into a probability stream that does not serve your growth. Resonance is the second mechanism. Every emotion carries a frequency, and when two people or two states of consciousness vibrate at similar frequencies, they begin to cohere. Think of two tuning forks placed side by side. Strike one, and the other starts to sing. In the quantum field, the same principle applies. If you hold unprocessed grief, you will resonate with others carrying grief, and chords are established. If you hold guilt, you are magnetized to those who unconsciously feed on guilt. The resonance feels familiar because it mirrors your own vibration. This is why unhealthy patterns often feel like home, even though they are destructive. A third mechanism is timeline locking. Every time you return to a memory, replay an argument, or rehearse a fear, you are not just thinking, you are collapsing into the same timeline over and over again. Consciousness is like a spotlight, and when it shines repeatedly on one branch of probability, that branch thickens. Toxic quantum connections feed on this process. The more you mentally revisit the story, the tighter the lock becomes. Eventually, it feels impossible to imagine an alternate outcome because your awareness has over-invested in one version of reality. The collective field also plays a role. Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic resonance suggests that memory is not stored only in the brain, but in fields of information that extend through time and space. When many people repeat the same emotional dramas, betrayal, abandonment, victimhood, those patterns become stronger in the collective field. When you carry unresolved wounds, you unconsciously tune into these larger fields, reinforcing them and drawing on their energy. It becomes not just your personal story, but part of humanity's story replaying through you. Identity stories are another subtle but powerful mechanism. You may have unconsciously accepted roles such as "I am the caretaker," "I am always left behind," or "I never succeed." These statements are not neutral. They are contracts that your consciousness signs with the field. Once internalized, the identity acts like a filter, selecting experiences that validate the belief. The field complies by aligning with your declared frequency. Toxic quantum connections exploit these self-definitions because they anchor you in a contracted self that cannot access higher timelines. Another important factor is coherence, or rather, the lack of it. When your thoughts, emotions, and body are out of alignment, the field becomes unstable, creating openings for entanglement. Imagine a radio not fully tuned to a station. Static fills the space, and interference from other frequencies bleeds in. In the same way, when you are incoherent, unresolved energies slip in and tether to your field. This is why moments of fatigue, heartbreak, or confusion are often the times when new toxic cords are formed. Your system is open, unguarded, and resonance take root quickly. These mechanisms explain why simply cutting someone out of your life does not always work. If the attention grooves, the resonance, the timeline lock, the identity contract, and the incoherence remain, the cord simply reattaches or appears through another person. You might change partners or jobs, but the frequency signature follows you until the root mechanism is addressed. This is why people find themselves saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" The answer is that their field is still carrying the template. The good news is that the same mechanics that create entanglements can also dissolve them. Redirecting attention collapses new timelines. Shifting resonance by generating new emotions weakens old cords. Creating coherence in the body through breath or ritual closes the openings. Releasing identity stories frees the field to select new outcomes. These are not abstract concepts. They are the physics of consciousness in action. Once you understand how toxic connections form, you also understand that they are not permanent. They are patterns built on attention, resonance, and repetition, and what is built can be dismantled. Awareness of the mechanics is the first lever. With it, you can stop feeding the loop and begin to design your field with intention. Your body is the most honest instrument of truth you will ever have. Long before the mind can analyze, before logic begins weaving explanations, your nervous system has already signaled whether a connection is nourishing or toxic. The tragedy is that most people have been trained to dismiss these signals. They label them as stress, coincidence, or mood swings, when in fact, the body is delivering precise quantum intelligence. If you want to identify toxic entanglements quickly, you must learn to trust your somatic markers. Notice the chest first. When a connection is coherent, the chest feels open, expansive, and steady, like a field of air flowing freely. But when a toxic cord activates, the chest tightens as if invisible hands are pressing inward. Breathing becomes shallow. Heart rhythm irregular. This is not just anxiety. It is the body mapping constriction caused by entanglement. The moment you feel this contraction, pause. It is your first clue. The throat is another gateway. Pay attention to moments when words get stuck. When you feel a sudden lump or dryness in the throat, these are not random sensations. They are biological alarms, telling you that your expression is being hijacked. Toxic quantum connections often suppress authentic voice, locking you into silence or scripted speech. If you walk away from a conversation feeling like you never said what you wanted, it may be because the cord was speaking through you instead of your authentic self. The gut carries its own wisdom. Nausea, heaviness, or a frozen stillness in the stomach are not trivial digestive issues. The gut is loaded with neurons and functions as a second brain. When it recoils, it is showing you where coherence has been broken. Many people describe butterflies in the stomach as excitement, but when the sensation is sharp, icy, or paralyzing, it often indicates energetic invasion. Do not dismiss the gut's verdict. It knows faster than the mind. Somatic markers also appear as fluctuations in body temperature. You may feel chills across your skin or a sudden wave of heat rising without external cause. These shifts occur because the nervous system is responding to field interference. Think of them as seismic tremors in the body's ecosystem, evidence that another frequency has entered your space. The quicker you learn to catch these tremors, the sooner you can trace them back to the source. Dreams are another diagnostic arena. When the body cannot fully express interference in waking life, it continues the communication in sleep. Repeating dreams about being trapped, chased, or endlessly searching are not random. They are metaphors for cords tightening in the field. Pay close attention to recurring dream characters. Often they symbolize the entanglement itself rather than the person you see. The subconscious uses these images to broadcast where energy is leaking to sharpen detection. Use micro-tests throughout your day. After each significant interaction, close your eyes for 30 seconds and scan your body. Does the chest feel free or compressed? Is the stomach calm or clenched? Is the mind clear or foggy? This simple practice turns the body into a compass. Over time, you will notice patterns. Certain people always trigger the same constriction. Certain environments always drain the same region of the body. Patterns are proof of entanglement. Another overlooked signal is the shift in internal language. After spending time with someone, notice the words running through your mind. Are they self-affirming or self-diminishing? Toxic cords often hijack inner dialogue, planting phrases like, "I'm not enough," "I'm trapped," or "I'll never change." These echoes may feel like your thoughts, but they are imprints from the connection. When your vocabulary contracts, your field is telling you it has been invaded. The value of all these somatic signals is that they bypass denial. The mind can argue, justify, or explain, but the body cannot lie. A tight chest is a tight chest. A clenching gut is a clenching gut. No philosophy can erase that. This is why awareness of somatic markers is the fastest way to identify toxic quantum attachments. Once you honor them, you no longer need years of analysis. You can know in seconds whether a connection is aligned or harmful. Remember, your body is not betraying you, it is guiding you. Every shiver, every knot, every dream fragment is part of your field's intelligence system. The more you listen, the more fluent you become in its language, and fluency leads to freedom. Because you can act before the entanglement grows stronger, awareness of the signals is already the beginning of untangling. The body shows the way out long before the mind is ready to believe it. The moment of truth arrives when you realize that the cords were never holding you at all. You were holding them. This is the hidden mechanism almost no one speaks about. People spend years battling shadows, trying to cut ties, cleanse energy, or escape environments, believing the cords are external enemies. Yet the shocking revelation is this: cords are woven from your own attention, your own agreement, your own willingness to keep rehearsing an outdated story. They are not shackles imposed upon you. They are threads you continue to feed. And the instant you stop feeding them, they collapse. This is the shock point. For most, it is difficult to accept because the mind insists that pain is proof of reality. You think, if I let this go, I will lose myself. And in a way, you are right. What dies is not you, but the false self that was never truly yours. Toxic quantum connections survive only because you still identify with the version of you that needed them. The victim needs the persecutor to confirm its existence. The martyr needs rejection to validate its sacrifice. The rescuer needs broken people to fulfill its purpose. Without those cords, that version of self cannot survive. So the deeper truth is, cords do not feed on you, they feed on who you think you are. Here is the paradox. The very cords that cause suffering also provide identity. They give you a script to follow, a role to perform, a familiar frequency to inhabit. This is why people cling to toxic patterns even while complaining about them. Without the pattern, the false identity has no stage. The field is neutral, but your attachment keeps recycling the same timeline. And until you are willing to release the role itself, you will keep rehearsing the same pain under different costumes. The hidden cut is surrender, not surrender to suffering, but surrender of the outdated self. Liberation is not about forcefully tearing cords away. It is about no longer being the self that requires them. When you step into coherence, when thought, emotion, and body align in the frequency of freedom, the cords dissolve on their own. You do not fight the darkness, you outgrow it. Just as light makes darkness vanish instantly, coherence erases entanglement without resistance. The shocking truth is that cords are not broken by struggle, but by expansion. This is the reason you have felt trapped, despite endless effort. You tried moving to a new city, changing relationships, even practicing rituals to cut ties. But the story followed you because the cords were never outside. They were anchored in the version of you that refused to die. The only escape is transformation. You cannot outrun a pattern that is still living inside you. Wherever you go, you bring yourself. Until you release the old identity, the entanglement will simply rebuild itself through new faces and new circumstances. Think of a butterfly still clutching pieces of its cocoon. The cocoon is no longer needed, but the butterfly clings to it because it is familiar. As long as it refuses to unfold its wings, it believes it is trapped. Yet the moment it expands into its true form, the cocoon becomes irrelevant. The same applies to you. Toxic connections are like old shells. They feel like protection, but in truth, they are prisons. Once you expand into your authentic self, the cords lose all grip. This is the radical truth. Many teachings avoid freedom requires death, not physical death, But the death of roles and masks you have mistaken for self. You cannot carry the identity of the victim into sovereignty. You cannot carry the identity of the abandoned into unconditional love. You cannot carry the identity of the rescuer into coherence. One must dissolve for the other to emerge. This is the quantum death that makes quantum rebirth possible. The shock point is that release is instantaneous. Years of pain, loops, and rehearsals collapse in a single moment of coherence. The timeline you thought was permanent dissolves like mist in sunlight. What people call miracles are simply physics change the frequency. And the entanglement cannot survive. The reason it seems miraculous is because the cords were never real chains. They were agreements. And agreements can be revoked in an instant. So here is the question: who are you without the story? If that question terrifies you, you are standing at the doorway of liberation. Fear is not a warning to stop. It is proof that you are touching the edge of transformation. The false self trembles because it knows its end is near. But on the other side of that fear is the real you, unchained, unbound, luminous. The cords dissolve not when you fight them, but when you remember you never needed them. This is the hidden cut. This is the moment reality flips. Not in years, not after endless struggle, but in the instant you choose coherence over contraction. What once felt like destiny is revealed as nothing more than a story you outgrew. Once seen, there is no going back. Your shift is irreversible. After the shock of realizing cords dissolve the moment you stop feeding them, the natural question arises: what now? How do you embody freedom? Not just glimpse it for a moment. Empowerment begins when you shift from analysis to practice. Awareness breaks the spell, but action rewires the field. Your daily choices, however small, become the architecture of your new frequency. The first practice is attention redirection. Toxic connections feed on recycled focus. Every time you rehearse an old conversation, the cord grows stronger. So the counter move is deliberate attention training. When the memory surfaces, don't fight it. Gently redirect. Place your focus on breath, on a sound in the room, on a vision of the life you are creating. This simple act of shifting awareness is not escape, it is sovereignty. You are telling the field, I choose where my spotlight shines. The second practice is micro-coherence. Entanglements form when thoughts, feelings, and body fall out of alignment. To restore coherence, use the 3-breath ritual. Inhale deeply through the nose. Hold for a moment. Then exhale slowly through the mouth. With each cycle, silently declare, I call back my energy. This practice takes less than a minute, yet it gathers scattered fragments of your field into a centered whole. Repeat it often. It builds resilience against new cords forming. A third empowerment tool is identity rewriting. Write down the roles you have been unconsciously playing: the victim, the rescuer, the abandoned one. Then, on a separate page, declare the identities you choose. I am sovereign. I am coherent. I am free. Burn or tear the old page as a symbolic release. Keep the new page visible as a reminder. Identity is the anchor of reality. When you consciously rewrite who you are, the field reorganizes to match. The fourth practice is energetic hygiene. Just as you wash your body daily, cleanse your field. This can be as simple as visualizing a shower of light rinsing away residue after interactions, or brushing your arms and torso lightly with your hands while affirming, I release what is not mine. These gestures may seem symbolic, but in quantum terms, they are declarations that shift resonance. Your body responds. your field recalibrates. Another crucial practice is gratitude anchoring. Toxic connections thrive on scarcity and fear. Gratitude is a frequency shift that dissolves scarcity instantly. Each night, write 3 moments you are grateful for, no matter how small. The act of recording gratitude changes the brain's wiring and signals the field that you are already abundant. When cords try to pull you back into lack, gratitude redirects you into expansion. Finally, cultivate the courage of boundaries. Empowerment is not only internal, but also practical. You must learn to say no without guilt, to step away without explanation, to protect your energy as sacred. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates of choice. They tell the universe, this field is coherent. Only resonance aligned with my highest timeline is welcome here. Boundaries are the embodiment of sovereignty in action. None of these practices require hours. They are small, repeatable gestures that train your field to stabilize in freedom. The key is consistency. Just as toxic cords were formed by repetition, new freedom is secured by repetition. Each redirected thought, each breath of coherence, each declaration of identity, each cleansing ritual, each act of gratitude, each boundary honored, these are stitches in the fabric of your liberated self. The shift becomes irreversible when practice becomes embodiment. You no longer perform rituals as tasks, they become natural expressions of who you are. At that point, toxic connections cannot survive because they find no resonance in your field. You are no longer the version of yourself that could be entangled. You have stepped fully into the sovereign self who does not need cords to define existence. That is empowerment, not an abstract idea, but a lived, daily practice of freedom. Empowerment begins the shift, but embodiment seals it. To embody means that freedom is no longer an idea you practice occasionally. It becomes your default state of being. The cords dissolve not only because you cut them, but because you no longer vibrate at the frequency that could attract them in the first place. Embodiment is living as the version of yourself who is already free. Day after day, choice after choice. Integration starts with the body. Every liberated timeline must anchor into physical reality. Otherwise, the mind drifts back into old stories. Begin by moving with awareness. Walk as if your body belongs to freedom. Breathe as if your lungs are filled with sovereignty. Speak as if your voice is already aligned with truth. These are not performances, they are physical confirmations. The body teaches the field what reality you are choosing. If you want coherence, you must embody coherence with every gesture. Embodiment also requires environment. You cannot stabilize in liberation while surrounding yourself with constant reminders of old patterns. Integration means curating your space to reflect your highest frequency. Clear out objects that carry residue from toxic timelines, letters, photos, even clothing that anchors you to the past. Replace them with symbols that amplify expansion light. Music, colors, words of sovereignty. Your environment becomes a mirror that reflects back the reality you are stabilizing. Relationships must also be integrated. Embodiment means relating from your sovereign self rather than from your old wounds. Instead of rescuing, rescuers learn to witness. Instead of collapsing into silence, the abandoned learn to speak truth. Instead of rehearsing conflict, the victim learns to stand in peace. This is not about cutting everyone off. It is about shifting how you show up. When you embody freedom, others either rise to match your frequency or fade naturally from your field. Integration is effortless once you live the new vibration consistently. One powerful practice of embodiment is ritualized declaration. Each morning, Place your hand on your heart and declare out loud, I am coherent. I am sovereign. I am aligned with my highest timeline. Do not whisper it. Speak it with presence. Sound carries frequency. And when your voice declares your truth, the field responds. Declarations are not magic spells, they are frequency anchors. Each word spoken with coherence becomes a law in your reality. Another layer of integration is service. Freedom is not meant to be hoarded. When you embody sovereignty, you naturally radiate it outward. Share your journey. Not to convince others, but to embody the vibration openly. Acts of kindness, creativity, or guidance become extensions of your field. This service grounds your freedom into the collective, weaving your coherence into humanity's awakening. The more you give from overflow, the stronger your embodiment becomes. Embodiment also means consistency in the small things. It is easy to feel free in meditation or during ritual, but the real test is how you show up in the ordinary. Do you bring coherence into traffic? Into conversations at work? Into moments of stress? True integration is when freedom shows up everywhere. Not only in sacred moments, when your baseline frequency is liberation, toxic cords cannot reattach because they have no resonance to cling to. Finally, embodiment requiert patience. Old timelines may attempt to echo, but echoes are not chains. You may still feel faint pulls, but they fade quickly if you no longer feed them. Do not interpret echoes as failure. They are simply remnants dissolving. Integration is not about perfection, it is about persistence. Each day you live as your sovereign self. The cords lose another layer of influence until they vanish completely. This is embodiment, not a practice you do, but a self you become. Once liberation is integrated into body, environment, relationships, voice, and service, it no longer requires effort. It becomes natural. And when freedom becomes natural, toxic connections cannot survive. You are not fighting for liberation anymore. You are living it. That is the mark of true integration, the day you realize that what once felt like practice has become who you are. The final stage of this journey is recognizing that your liberation is not only personal. Every time you dissolve a toxic connection, you are not just cutting cords in your own field. You are untangling threads from the collective web of humanity. Awakening is not a solitary event. It ripples outward. Each coherent choice you embody becomes a signal in the quantum field. And that signal gives permission for others to awaken. Your healing is never just yours. It is always ours. This is the deeper purpose behind all the personal work you have done. You may think you are simply freeing yourself from old wounds. Yet in truth, you are contributing to a collective shift. Imagine billions of individuals entangled in similar cords of abandonment, fear, betrayal, and scarcity. Every time one person severs a cord, the pattern weakens in the morphic field. The next person finds it easier to break free, because the frequency has already been interrupted. In this way, your liberation becomes part of humanity's liberation. You are not an isolated being healing in a corner. You are a node in the great network of consciousness. And every transformation echoes across the web. This is why the awakening movement is accelerating so quickly. More and more people are beginning to notice déjà vu, repeating patterns, energetic drains, and subtle body signals. They think they are alone, but in truth they are tuning into the same field that you are. The rise in synchronicities, dreams, and collective restlessness is evidence that humanity as a whole is reaching a tipping point. The cords that have bound us for centuries, cultural loops, ancestral traumas, Collective beliefs in powerlessness are beginning to unravel, and your personal shift is a thread in that unraveling. Collective awakening is not about everyone thinking the same. It is about each person embodying coherence so that the larger field stabilizes. When enough individuals choose sovereignty, the collective vibration lifts. This is how timelines shift on a planetary level. Wars, corruption, and fear-based systems cannot hold when the frequency of humanity no longer feeds them. Just as your personal cords dissolve when you withdraw attention, collective cords dissolve when humanity collectively withdraws attention. This is the true revolution, an energetic one. But here is the paradox: you do not need to wait for the whole planet to wake up. The field does not operate on majority vote. It operates on coherence. A small number of coherent beings can shift the resonance of the whole. Think of tuning forks again. One struck clearly can pull many others into harmony. Your coherence is not insignificant. It is leverage. By living your freedom, you help align the field for countless others. The awakening spreads not by force, but by resonance. This means your embodiment is an offering to the world. Every breath of coherence, every act of gratitude, every boundary held, every declaration spoken, these are contributions to the collective field. You are not just practicing for yourself. You are stabilizing frequencies that others will unconsciously tune into. Someone across the planet may find it easier to leave an abusive pattern because you chose to release yours. Someone may suddenly feel courage to speak truth because your field transmitted that possibility into the web. This is the beauty of collective awakening. We rise together, even when we never meet. And here is the hope we must hold. Humanity is not doomed to repeat its old timelines forever. Just as individuals escape loops, so can civilizations. The great cycles of war, oppression, and collapse are not destiny. They are chords in the collective field, reinforced by centuries of fear. But we are the generation standing at the threshold of a new probability stream. We are the ones who can finally stop feeding the old patterns. The more of us who choose coherence, the faster the chords dissolve. The quantum future is not written yet. It waits for our choice. So ask yourself, what would it look like if billions of us lived without chords? Imagine a planet where energy is no longer drained by toxic entanglements but flows freely into creativity, compassion, and innovation. Imagine relationships free from manipulation, societies free from fear, and humanity aligned with its highest timeline. This is not fantasy. It is physics. The field will always reorganize according to the dominant resonance, and if coherence becomes the dominant frequency, the world itself transforms. This is why your awakening matters. It is not selfish to free yourself. It is service. The courage you show in dissolving your cords is the courage you lend to the collective. You are a mirror reminding others of their own sovereignty. You are a lighthouse signaling through the fog of forgetfulness. And you are proof that another reality is possible. The collective shift is not something we wait for. It is something we embody, one by one, until the resonance tips. And when it tips, the entire species leaps. The final truth is this: you were never meant to awaken alone. Your liberation is inseparable from ours. We are threads in one tapestry, particles in one field, voices in one song. When one rises, all rise. When one remembers, all are invited to remember. This is collective awakening, the moment we realize that the cords binding us were never stronger than our choice to be free. And once enough of us choose, the loop ends for humanity itself. That is the great hope. That is the destiny waiting for us all. You have reached the closing of this journey, and something inside you already knows the truth. You were never powerless. The cords that seemed unbreakable were always woven from your own attention. And today you remembered that attention is yours to reclaim. Every signal your body gave you, every moment of awareness, every act of surrender has led you here to the threshold of irreversible freedom. The great secret is that freedom was never waiting somewhere outside. It has always lived within you, quiet and constant, beneath the noise of stories and roles. The victim, the rescuer, the abandoned self, these were masks. And now those masks are gone. What remains is the sovereign self who has always been here. Once you see this, there is no going back. The shift is permanent, but liberation is not the end, it is the beginning. This moment is your invitation to live daily as the one who is already free, not practicing occasionally, but embodying consistently. Each breath is a choice. Each thought is a declaration. Each boundary is a frequency anchor. The cords cannot return, because you are no longer the version of you who once needed them. You have already stepped into coherence. So here is your call, declare it. Speak it aloud. Write it in the comments. Let it ripple into the field. Words carry frequency. And when you declare with presence, the quantum responds. Anchor your freedom with your voice. This loop ends now. I am sovereign over my energy. I am coherent with my highest timeline. No cord, no past, no story can hold me anymore. These are not affirmations to hope for. They are commands that rewrite reality. Every time you speak them, you stabilize the field of your liberation. Every time you repeat them, you remind yourself that the old story is gone. And imagine millions across the world making the same declaration, anchoring sovereignty into the collective field. That is how timelines shift, how humanity rises, how the web of entanglement finally dissolves. Your declaration joins a chorus that cannot be silenced, a wave of coherence reshaping the planet. Take a breath now. Place your hand on your heart. Say it, I am free. I am sovereign. I am untangled. I rise. Let the words vibrate through your body and out into the field. This is the moment where endings become beginnings, where loops dissolve into light, where your freedom is no longer theory but embodiment. Walk forward with courage. Walk forward with coherence. Walk forward knowing that you are never alone. Together, we are the awakening. Together, we are already free.